here we go. Fantastic Fan 101. This is what we decided to do. We got a hole we're going to cut in the ceiling, and what we're doing is we're building a mount for it. But I didn't want to do anything that bent because most of the plans of the Fantastic Fan, it's all just plastics for the most part, and I didn't want to damage it. It's too expensive. So what we're going to do is I'm trying to get a perfect square cut, putting together so that we can basically set something that won't ever bend the whole plastic fan. And we'll do all the sealing around this thing here to keep the water out. Yep, so we got the distances we want, and we used the fan to get the lengths we needed. And now we're just going to mark, sorry, and cut. And I'm taking our time cutting these pieces and getting them all smoothed up. And I know tools and their abuses probably ain't the best way to do that, but that's the way I did it. And then I mark it together, and because I want them to be exactly the same, see how I C-clamp that together? And it basically trimmed just the tiniest amount of the original to get them both the same size, because that's what I want. Yeah, I'm just cleaning up that edge because we'll use that piece later. So, and you know, that's not the right way to clean up those edges, but that's the way we're doing it. So what we got now is we got all 4 pieces cut. We need to make a box shape, a square. So I got to line them up. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to line them up so they're as square. And you just can't do the square in one direction. It's not a 2-dimensional process. It really needs to be 3-dimensional because these things can bend in all things. So I take 2 pieces of square tubing, well, rectangular tubing, because they'll hold it flat. And what I do is I will attach them to that because I know those are straight. You see how they're doing it? And then once we have it all straight and organized, then we can start welding it. But I got to get it all adjusted nice and purty. And here we go. Just getting it torqued. I'm using my right angle to get it all nice and set up. And then we'll do spot weldings first, just to get a couple tags on it, and that kind of hold it in place. And then I can go through and weld it. Now what I tried to do as much as I could was avoid welding too much on the inside, because that would take up space where the fan's actually going to sit. And then we just weld all that together. I'm not going to say we're professional welders, but we're getting better. Yeah, and we just keep doing this one at a time. And since I know all the pieces were the same size, because I had the right lengths, I just use those. See? And then we tack those down. We weld them all into place till we get a box. just want to mention that when we decided to grind this down, because we're probably never going to see this again, I really needed to grind it down and make sure the welds were good, because we don't want water leaking in. So at this point, I'm being real cautious, making it nice and shiny, Captain. Nice and pretty. Nice and shiny. Good welds on this, but no water leaking in later once it's all covered up. Here's Pops. He's going to cut out the over part because we just want the square, because we want it to sit in the roof just right. So his job is to cut that out, and then we'll grind that down. And if we need to, we'll do welding just to make sure it's nice and smooth and it's all watertight. So he's going to cut out. See how he's cutting out that little square piece? And then he just smooths it out. Yep, this is Fantastic Fan. You can see right there the model number. Now, the reason I'm opening this one is that we've already installed one. This is the second one, but it took so long and so much trial and error that I didn't film much of the first one. So this is the second one. You take it out. That's a template. It's also kind of you could use that part as a water seal if you had a flat roof like on an RV. But in buses, we ain't got nothing flat. The bus ceilings, roofs they're kind of bent. Those just extra wires that go with it, although we probably don't need those wires because of we're running all new wires. And hard to see that, but all that is a 1/4-inch bolt that we're going to use to hold it in place.
Instead of the bolts that come with it?
Yeah, instead of the rig that comes with it, which means we had to end up drilling out some bigger holes, which you should see later. And the remote. The best part of it, you can turn it on and off while I'm in bed. Haha. Yeah. I love the Fantastics fans. I've heard a lot of good reviews about them. A lot of people loving them. But that's the piece that we had to kind of build the square for. So the square had to fit in that.
And why did you go with Fantastic Fans?
Well, besides the great reviews, the biggest thing is reversible and auto shutting. And the remote was good because we have 8-foot ceilings. We had to have a remote. Also, the ones that you can use while you're driving, they're too tall because we raised our roof, and we wouldn't be able to have that height. First thing that hit 13.5, it'd rip it right off. So we went with this. Now this is that square thing I was welding earlier, and the reason it's red is because I had red paint. That's the only reason. After we put on the rust preventative paint, the primer, all that kind of stuff, I had a can of automotive red paint, so we put that on there. Yeah. Now all I'm talking about here is the roof. If you look on the front part of it, or the right side of that, there's a silver. That's the hinge. That needs to point toward the forward part of the bus because the wind will push down. So as you can see right there. So what I'm doing is clamp it in place, because we have to drill some holes. Now the holes that are in the fan, the plastic, the white thing going around, is not big enough, so we end up having to drill those out a little bit too. But I tend to do a lot of overkill, which is probably...
No.
I know. It takes me longer because of that.
No.
But spend a lot of time getting it centered, and I'm feeling underneath to make sure that I have kind of the same edge underneath. There's a tiny bit of a leeway, like 1/8 of an inch on the bottom side, inside it. I'm trying to get that centered. So all I'm doing is drilling down, and it makes a mark on that red paint. I'm drilling out the white holes, I make that mark. That way when I'm drilling, pushing hard to drill, I don't have to worry about damaging this fan. See how little silver marks it made? That's it. That basically spotted it, and then I just drill those out.
That was ingenious.
It wasn't my idea. It's probably some pretty lady named my wife.
I wasn't there, so I can't take credit. Not that I ever would, because you come up with great ideas.
Yeah, the piece of wood is just to protect the table. That table's actually been around the world several times, and that's not a joke. It really has. We were stationed in, all over the world, so it's been traveling. Now just drilling them out. So we got the holes drilled in the steel part, the actual bracket that we made. Now we just have to drill out those holes all the way through to make sure that the bolts, the 1/4 inch bolts, are going to go in. And then we make sure that they're all going to go in there. We line it up again and just got to make sure everything's working right. Yeah, part of the hardest part was really deciding where to cut this, making sure we got it as centered as we could. But once we got that, we kind of drew the template up there where we wanted that red squared piece of steel we made, the frame. It doesn't show that part, but that's what we used to kind of mark it out. And we just cut it out. And we test fit it. Don't like it, so now we got to trim and mark it and trim it. Yeah, it's better to cut less than more, that way you can trim it out. So in order to get it in, we got it nice to fit in there. What we did is we put we put the 2 screws at the highest point to hold it in place, or 2 bolts, sorry. And then we put 2 bolts on the, so basically you can see the 4 bolts that are installed. And then after we had that, we tightened them down, and then we drilled out the holes. That way we knew we had all of it, because I like to use more sealant than I actually need, which is what you're going to see that one of the fun things about this sealant is, now Grandpa is drilling from the other side to kind of wallow out that direction, but he did take off the nuts. We remove it and wipe that down, get it all cleaned up. And yep, that's my old long hair.
It's so pretty.
I'm like a princess. Like a light switch. Click. Here's some acetone. It's either acetone or mineral spirits, one of the two. Basically, just wipe it down because you want a nice clean surface for the butyl tape to get a good seal. Here she comes. We'll lay out some butyl tape right on top. And I highly recommend that you drill any holes you need to drill before you put butyl tape on it. Because if you drill through butyl tape, it becomes taffy. And you end up with a ton of taffy. Now, we did 1 layer going kind of left and right, going over the top, the arch of the, and then on the sides, we put extra butyl tape until we got it to a height that we felt was going to be a good height. So there's actually 2 layers on the sides. And then in the front, you can see the rivets to the left there. And then the 1 layer goes across the top. It really wasn't as much of a bend as I anticipated it to be, but just to be safe, we added an extra layer on the butyl tape on the sides. It gives us a little more to go with. Yeah. Pause. So take off all the tape cover, slide the bracket or the frame in place. This is that flashing. I love this stuff, but whatever you get it on, you're not getting it off. And we just kind of put that in once we get everything settled. Oh, another tube. I guess I ran low. Yep. And we're going to add lots of sealant. Everybody has nightmares about this stuff leaking, and I don't want any leaking. So bear in mind, whatever you put this on, it is not coming off. When it dries rubbery. I really like that. So it kind of keeps it rubbery because the diesel engine was just going to continually vibrate and move. This stuff really dries like it's kind of a hard rubber. Still kind of spongy, but really seals well. It's designed for flashing on a house, which means it's designed to be in the sunlight. So we got all the bolts in. These are stainless steel 1/4-inch bolts with locking bolt or nuts on them. We haven't decided yet if we're going to throw a little tack weld just to make sure they don't undo. That's undecided yet. But
to be determined.
Yes, to be determined. See that black and white wire off to the right? We had to remember to drill a hole. I didn't show that in this. Drill a hole because that's the power that's going in. And drill it in the side and near where it's going to be. We'll put a rubber grommet in that before we wire it up. We didn't power it up yet. But that's important. Don't forget the power. Thanks.
Go.
Wait, who's talking? You or me?
You.
Well, I always talk. Why don't you talk?
I am talking right now.
Oh, hey guys. What's it? Subscribe. Get your prescriptions. Always refill them on time. Not those prescriptions.
You do this every time.
But I'm always worried about my prescriptions running out. Anyway, hit the like button, the love button, the subscribe button.
Free hug button.
The free hug buttons. Yep, we're passing those out too. And look for us up in the coming Tiny House Festival in November down here in Florida, just south of Jacksonville.
And don't forget to look for us on Instagram and Facebook at Nerd Herd Nomads.
Nerd Herd.
And as always,
Stay nerdy.